Hello F11 members and welcome to the Fundamentals of Post-Production video tutorials for issue 82, December 2018. On the screen in front of you, you have the before and after images from a misty, frosty shoot that I did a couple of weeks ago here right on the Somerset-Dorset border. It's just near the village of Sanford-Orcas actually. And as you can see, that just that hint of that first frost of the year gave the landscape a lovely subtlety. And I shot it in that sort of blue light before the first sun came on the scene, and there's wisps of mist settling on the scene. So let's just talk through how I got to the end result there. And there's not been a lot of work being done on this picture, but as always, subtlety is the key. So I'm going to go back into loop view. I'm going to reset the image to the raw file, untouched, straight out of the camera. And here's the image, this one that I've flagged. That's the one that has caught my eye for processing. I've attached the caption information in here. I've got my copyright and author information embedded. That was done on import. What I'm going to do now is go to the develop module here and just apply this user preset called DMP1. I've talked through that before with you, and what it does is just applies a touch of sharpening to the image and a touch of vibrance. It's just a starting point. I can choose to alter that subsequently should I want to. That's normally done at import. So let's now work through the picture, starting with the fact that it's shot in mist. So it would be very tempting, wouldn't it, because it's a bit hazy, a bit misty, to use the Dehaze slider to take some of that mist out. It seems perverse, doesn't it, that us photographers love mist and then we use Dehaze to take it back out again. So I have to be really careful with this slider here. And I'm looking predominantly at my foreground, this area with the house and the cattle here. And if I go too far, it just looks a bit weird. And as I said, I want that mist in the shot. So I'm going to go to plus 40. That's quite a bit anyways, but I feel it's just taken out some of that haze in my foreground, but left the mist in the background. And then the next thing I do, as always, is look at my black and my white points. So I hold down the Alt key on my keyboard and move the black slider to the left until I start to clip my the darkest tones in my image, my blacks. Okay, so, and I'm going to do this same with the whites. Move the slider to the right, so that I'm making sure that the brightest tone in the image is a pure white. Okay, and I can go to about plus 30 there. Already that's done a fair bit to enhance the contrast of the picture. But I think looking at it that this is one of those images that could do with a touch more contrast. So what I'm going to do here is come down and use this point curve preset. It's called medium contrast. It's quite useful. Just put a touch of contrast into the scene there. That's worked well. But I'm looking at this image down here, the bottom part of the image here, and I want to just fine tune that. And to do that, I'm going to use my grad tool. And so if I hold down the shift key and move my grad in from the bottom up, and then I can just fine tune its position there. And I'm going to now make sure up here, this box here is clicked on my histogram display, because I'm going to alter the whites just in this area that I've selected with the grad tool. And I'm going to move that slider to the white until you can see I start to see I'm clipping my whites there. So I can afford to adjust my whites to about plus 20 in the bottom of the image. What I'm doing now is fine-tuning the contrast in selective areas of the image. Okay, so that's worked well. I don't want to do anything else to that area of the picture, so I'm just going to click on Done now. And now I'm going to use the Grab tool again here, and I'm going to hold down the Shift key, but this time bring it down from the top of the image. A fairly soft grad here. Now it would be tempting at this stage to use the Dehaze slider just to take out some of the tones in the just to enhance the contrast in that misty area there. But can you see the effect it has on the colours? It's really quite yucky. And so I have to be so careful with this. So I'm literally going to put in just a teaspoonful of Dehaze, because the mist is part of the scene. Why would I want to take it out? So I go just +4, hardly anything on that. But what I'm going to do now is alter my blacks here, just in that selected area of the picture. So if I make sure this box in the histogram window is ticked, I can now move my blacks to the left, and it'll tell me when I'm clipping. In fact, I can go all the way to -100 without clipping. But of course, that doesn't look natural, does it? At the end of the day, I want to be subtle with my adjustments. So I'm just going to put in about -20 there. On my blacks, just go for a bit of a softer approach there. Okay, and also what I'm going to do is just come back on my exposure, just darken down the top of the picture a touch, go to about minus. Again, I need to be subtle here. I think about that. -17 looks about right. I'll just go for a touch of a softer grab there. Okay, now I click on Done and just step back and look at this picture. And I think the various adjustments I've made using Dehazer and black and white point and tone curve to put contrast back into the image has resulted in it looking slightly yucky on the colour front. So what I'm going to do is take out the vibrance on that. Sometimes I use negative vibrance in these situations. Of course, the colour temperature of the light that I was exposing in that morning was pretty cool. Quite a high colour temperature, giving quite a bluish feel to the picture, which is all part of the scene. I do not want to take that out, but I do think that actually it's just a little bit too much. And normally I hardly ever do this, but in this particular case, I'm just going to warm up the picture just a touch. I could just use this color temperature slider here to do that, like that. But what I'm actually going to do is just put in a value, the color temperature value measured in Kelvin here of 5,400. Only an adjustment of 200 Kelvin there, or 300 Kelvin there. Just a slight warming of the image to take out that excessive blueness. I think that's much better. What else, if anything, needs to be done to the shot? I don't think anything really. It's quite a high key image. I could bring back the exposure maybe just a touch. So I'm going to use my keyboard to do that. But no, I'm not. I'm not going to do that. Let's go back on that. I think that was, I don't want to do that at all. So let's take that back out. If in doubt, do nothing. But I do think some of these tones here in this hedge have just blocked in a little bit too much. So I'm going to use my adjustment brush here and click on Show Selected Mask Overlay down the bottom here. And then just paint in the area I want to select, which is the darkest area of the hedge. So useful, this tool. And then click that off again, and then just come back here and just bring up my shadows just a touch in that area. Again, a really fine touch on that. And click on Done. And I think really I'm pretty much done. Let's look at the before and after again, and quite a significant difference. But there's one thing still bothering me about this picture, and it's this horrible electricity pylon here, or telephone pylon, bringing their broadband into this farmhouse, obviously. So I think I'm going to cut them off. I'm going to deny them internet access. I could, of course, use the clone tool here in Lightroom, but I find the healing brush, content-aware healing brush in Photoshop so much more functional. So I'm going to open this picture in Photoshop. So I'll see you there in just a second. So here's the image open now in Photoshop, and I'm just going to zoom in, Command plus on my keyboard, and move the window so that I'm looking at the offending telephone pylon here. And I'm now going to select Content Aware Healing Brush here. If I just right click on that symbol, make sure Content Healing Brush Tool, Spot Healing Brush Tool, that's what I want. And I must make sure that up here Content Aware is activated. Okay, so now just adjust the size of my brush, and I'm using a graphics tablet here. More on that in a separate feature in this edition of the F11 Photography magazine, but it's so useful for this sort of work. It's both it's pressure sensitive, so I can adjust the size of the brush to suit with the pressure on the pad there. I still think that's magic, Just take out that. I'll go back on that touch. That wasn't quite so dexterous. Okay, just take that out there, and then some of these cables here. And lo and behold, my good neighbours in that farmhouse are devoid of any contact with the outside world. Okay, let's zoom back out again, and I'm very pleased with that picture. Beautiful morning, first frost of the winter, as autumn morphed into winter. And that's it. So we'll see you in part 2, and we'll talk through the post-production on another picture. Thank you.